It's the Your Pet Detective Show with Ardina Stewart and Angel Nieves, live stream from New York.
And we are back again, folks. This is, I think, Angel, correct me if I'm wrong. That's right, episode 3 in 2024 of Your Pet Detective. I'm Ardina Stewart. That guy over there is Angel Nieves. Wrong side, I'll point that way. My screen direction is that way, but I'll point the other direction. Angel Nieves, former NYPD detective who has now turned into a pet detective and who finds pets. And we also are talking about not only finding pets on the show, but talking about how to take care of pets. And speaking of pets, guess who just showed up? Ha, Buddha, say hi. Say hi. Look at the people. Say hi, Buddha. Well, that's my little furball. So today we have Dr. Karen London on. She is an author and also a dog behaviorist. Angel has some video, so we're going to hit that video before we get to our guest tonight.
There's a fire. Stop. Truck. Roll. Crawl to safety.
Geez, what can I tell you? I need a cat behaviorist. Come on, you got to behave. So
You need a clicker.
I need
You need a clicker.
a clicker. So Karen, you have written several books, and one of the overarching themes of your books is how dogs are like human beings, and you treat human beings in many ways, human being behavior, the way you would want to train dog behavior. So tell us about your mission and what you do.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really happy to be here. And yes, I have one book in particular called Treat Everyone Like a Dog that is really, basically it's all about what I learned about dog training and behavior that I've applied to other people or to people in my life. And the principles of learning are the same, whether you're training dolphins or ants or bees or cats or dogs or people. And I found that the way that I treat dogs, I'm at my very most patient, I'm at my very most understanding. I have the best empathy with them. And at one point I sort of realized, wow, I really should be taking this into the rest of my life. And I have, and I found that I was more effective in my interactions with other people, and I was nicer, and things went better with my kids and everyone I worked with and people I know. And so that was my pandemic book. I wrote it during the pandemic. And the way I think of it is it's a lot about what I do in training and behavior, but I also think of it as it's not just what I do, it's who I am.
Dog aggression. I mean, I think just about everybody is afraid of that dog that jumps in the path and growls at you as you are jogging, or the postman is trying to deliver mail and there's a dog saying, no, you're not going to deliver mail here. How do you, there are all sorts of anti-barking and anti-dog threat devices, but rather than resort to that, how do you deal with an aggressive dog?
Well, that's one of those like sort of short questions that actually has incredibly long answers because it depends on so many things and everything about the dog and the situation and your experience with that dog. But as a general thing, I can say, and aggression is my specialty. I mostly work with aggressive dogs. And I think the most important thing to know to answer that question is that I would say about 80% of the dogs who are acting aggressively are acting that way because they're afraid. And what they really want, lots of times when they're barking and growling and charging at you, or even if they're biting sometimes, what they want is more distance between you and them because you are scary to them. So one of the best things that you can do is just give them space so that they get what they want, or do something that helps make them realize that you're not scary, like tossing treats or tossing a toy or making sure you're not staring at them. So understanding why they're aggressive is key to helping them. And it's different for every dog, but a lot of them are scared actually.
But there are some behaviors in dogs that are persistent, and you hear people talk about, well, Rover was just a bad dog, and just like you have pathologies in people, sociopaths, psychopaths, is there such an anomaly in dogs? Is there a breed of dogs or a dog in a type of dog who's just going to be mean and cannot be rehabbed?
Well, um, if people ask me, like, about breeds of dogs, I'll say, like, you can name a breed of dog, and I've probably met an aggressive one like it, and I've probably met a lovely one of that breed. So it doesn't have to do with breed. Almost every dog I work with, or really pretty much every dog I work with, they can get better. I don't know how much better. It depends on so many factors, but it's not my experience that I meet dogs who are mean or bad or difficult where we can't make some progress. Of course, it's always a question for an individual family. Can we make them better enough that we feel safe and it feels okay? But I don't really, I've been working with aggressive dogs for 27 years, 26, 27 years. And I could count just on, my two hands, the number of times I've met a dog that I really felt like was really hard to have any hope.
One of the ironies I found, I suppose, in my amateur summation, is that sometimes the most aggressive dogs are the small ones. I used to have a little 3-pound Chihuahua that would stand up to huge dogs, and she was this big, and she had no reservation about approaching a large dog and really challenging that dog. When she was home, she was fine, but outside, it was just amazing. She was the most aggressive dog I've ever owned.
Yeah, that tracks with my experience too. I don't think there's much link between the size of the dog and the way that they act. My sister used to have like a 120-pound Newfoundland that I would let my toddlers sit around and hang out with. I've met little dogs I wouldn't. And it's sort of the same in people. Big people aren't more aggressive than little people. And in fact, we even kind of have a term when we meet someone that's really big and they're very kind and gentle. We call them a gentle giant. It's a whole thing, right? So I don't find anything with size. A lot has to do with, their genetics and their natural personality and their experiences in life. And that I feel like the only thing that is more common in terms of aggression with little dogs is I have a lot more clients who say their dogs bite when they pick them up when they're little dogs, but that's only because, nobody's going around picking up 100-pound dogs as often as they're picking up, 5-pound ones. So that, more small dogs bite when they get picked up and they don't like it. And I think, if someone just went around, I'm medium sized, someone went around picking me up, I wouldn't like it. So that happens.
You mentioned a key word, genetics. This is going back to what I asked you before. When it comes to genetics, are some dogs just prone genetically to be more aggressive? Bred genetically to be more aggressive, I should say.
Well, if people purposely try to breed dogs to be aggressive, there is a genetic component to it, and they can do that. People which I wish they didn't do it, but we know people do breed fighting dogs. They're breeding for aggression, and it is possible to do that. Aggression can be bred for in a whole bunch of different species. It's one of the traits that's quite easy to breed for in a whole lot of different species. And then one of the things that makes some dogs aggressive that has a genetic component is that they're neophobic. They're afraid of new things. That's something that has a genetic component. Some dogs who are afraid of new things, like, the sound of the telephone, if they've never heard one, or, a smoke alarm or a weird smell. If they're dogs that are just genetically have a harder time dealing with novelty, then they're more likely to be aggressive because it makes them afraid. So there are some genetic components, and you'll often find that if somebody has a dog with aggressive tendencies and they know something about the litter and the parents, that there often are other litter mates who have aggression. Or sometimes, like, I would say to somebody, never ever get a dog from someone who says, "Oh, you can't meet the father. He's not good with people." What they're saying is he's aggressive. And so you don't really want, because can be a genetic component to aggression. I personally wouldn't want a puppy from lines that have a history of aggression.
Wow. So let's say, let's produce a hypothetical situation. Somebody brings you one of those dogs and they say, look, this dog is lunging at my 5-year-old and he's only 6 months old. So what do you do with that dog?
Well, it really depends on exactly why the dog is doing that. But some dogs are afraid of the children. I mean, children are so unpredictable. They move in funny ways, and they fall down, and they, smell funny, and and so sometimes I think what happens is that the dog and the child need space from each other and boundaries. I love to give. I mean, this is not necessarily for anyone listening to this shouldn't say, "Oh, I'm sure this is right for my dog." These are general ideas, but many dogs are alarmed by living in a house with children because they're crawling on them, or they're trying to hug them, or doing things they don't like. So I love to give dogs in a household, especially with children, a place that they can go where the children aren't allowed to go. So if they go there, they're saying, "I need a break." And I think that kind of break can be really helpful if they know I can go here and I don't have a child, batting my tail or poking my nose or lifting my ears up. I think that goes a long way. And sometimes I can't tell you how often I've had people say to me about a dog, "My God, he's such an angel. I love this dog. The kids can do anything to him." And my first question is always like, "What are the kids doing to him?" They shouldn't have to tolerate it. But many dogs are saints, and they put up with children doing, or adults too, but children doing really, irksome and irritating things to them. And, Lord love all the dogs that do that, but I just don't think they should have to put up with that.
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of parents that have dogs, especially big dogs, small dogs, it doesn't really matter, like you say, but they try to always blame the pit bull, which is a nanny dog. But they're saying that, "Oh, my dog is so good. He takes care of my child, the babies." You have like YouTube, the baby kissing the big dog, a big head, and the baby's like newborn. And I'm looking at this, I say, my God, I remember somebody once had a dog that it smelled like Pampers, the powder, and the dog actually went for the smell and bit right there.
Oh,
And because of the smell and the way the kids scream, how can they leave the dogs by themselves with the kid by themselves? You hear a lot of stories of death, mauling, and everything on dogs, and people still do it.
There was actually a tragic story. I remember, I didn't cover it, but back in the day when I was working in news, of a young woman, a single mother, who was pretty much homeless, but was in an apartment in the city, and didn't have the means to take care of her young baby and the dog. And unfortunately, she was in another room, fell asleep, and the dog just destroyed that child. And there was a big debate about whether the dog should have been put down or not. And I believe that the dog was put down. But there was an outcry from animal activists saying that, you left the dog and both the child in a deplorable situation. So the dog was acting out of instinct. And it was sort of a cautionary tale about leaving dogs, unattended with young children. That kids don't realize that they are harming a dog or annoying a dog, and a dog doesn't realize that that's a child. A dog is trying to defend itself. So, it's a word to the wise, not to leave an animal unattended with a young child. It's a recipe for disaster in many ways. Even though you trust the dog and the dog is great, it still is something that people probably should think twice about. Now, I'd like to ask too about medication for dogs, because there was a time when actually a kind of dog Prozac was being prescribed for dogs. Have you ever heard about that, or do you condone that at all?
Well, I have to say I'm not a veterinarian. My PhD is in zoology with animal behavior as my specialty. I don't have any medical training, so it's not appropriate for me to discuss whether or not that's appropriate. But certainly there are many dogs who are on various medications. They do, like many use fluoxetine, which is generic Prozac, and there seem to be studies that suggest that this helps various dogs with various situations. But it's definitely something to discuss with your veterinarian, whether it be appropriate for a dog. But to me, just as a human being, without saying that I'm giving any advice, I mean, their systems are not that different than ours in terms of their brain and their chemistry. And so it doesn't surprise me that if various things help people who have anxiety or various sensitivity, that could be helpful to dogs. Whether or not any particular dog should be medicated, I have no opinion on that.
Which was you just led me into my next question, and then Angel's going to jump in. Anatomy. How similar or dissimilar is a dog's brain to a human brain?
I mean, they're, sort of all vertebrates have a lot of similarities in their brains. So dog brains are quite similar to humans, like the areas of the brain where we process emotion and where we process language and where we process facial recognition have things in common. Some things are really different, not surprisingly, like they have a huge olfactory lobe that helps them distinguish scents, and their sense of smell is obviously so well developed compared to ours. And so they correspondingly have a part of their brain that processes sense that, ours is like kind of puny and a joke, and theirs is quite large.
Angel, you had a question. Angel?
Yeah, I want to go back to the baby again. I really believe it's so important. What do you suggest, Karen?
Well, I think it's really important to make sure that dogs and children are not left alone unattended. And even when parents are or other adults are in the room, they should be actively supervising interactions, not just watching them. Because I can't tell you how many people come in and say, like I was just watching them and then the dog bit. It was so quick. So that, actively making sure that the dog feels comfortable and that the baby's not doing, or the child's not doing anything difficult. And obviously, every fatality, especially with a child, is totally unacceptable. But I just do want to say it's kind of amazing with the weapons that dogs have, the carpet knives in their mouths, how rarely it is that dogs bite. I mean, we know we hear about dog bites a lot, but when you think of the millions of dogs around people, it's actually, that's no consolation, obviously, if a tragedy happens to someone you care about, but dogs are generally pretty inhibited about biting. And I really appreciate that. And I know that people talk about like you never leave a dog unattended, with a child, which is so good. But I remember when I was pregnant with my youngest son, and I got pregnant with him when my older son was 11 months old. And I remember running to the bathroom because I had a lot of, morning sickness. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, people say like, you should never leave them unattended. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Like grab the baby or grab the dog as I'm running to the toilet to throw up? Like, it's really hard. I don't expect everyone to be perfect about it. But anytime you're taking a risk, and it is really unfortunate, but I think that's what crates are for, or tethers, or frankly, pack and place for children. There are a lot of ways to keep them separate that are safe. And I was not flawless about it when I was in those early years, for sure.
Yeah, let me ask you two more. I got so many questions. I'm gonna ask for two, maybe. Another thing is aggressive dogs with owners. That I call you. My dog is aggressive. You train my dog. You train me. 2 months later, the dog is back the same way because I didn't listen to you. That does happen, right? People just leave the dog, don't take him out, actually don't pay mind to them, and have him tied up in the basement because he's barking too much and I'm working. That's what kind of behavior would a dog become?
Well, I have to say, I feel like I have clients the time people come to see me, they're often sort of at the end of their rapidly fraying rope, and they've seen lots of people say to me all the time, I've seen so many trainers, I've tried everything, you're my last hope. And lots of times they haven't tried everything, and I'm glad they've come to me, and I do want to give them hope. I have really committed clients. Like I don't have clients who don't do anything. Like they try. One thing that sometimes does happen, like suppose a dog is really afraid of people, and so they like bark and lunge and they've bitten some people, and we work on having the dog only around people in a situation they can handle. Like maybe the people are 30 feet away, they're never close, and they're tossing treats or balls or squeaky toys, and the dogs start to learn like, oh wow, like I actually like people because they give toys and squeakies and treats. And then gradually work till the people can get closer and closer and closer, and maybe the in-laws can visit and they're fine, and the dogs learn like, okay, you're in the club, I like you, and you're safe. I find that sometimes what happens is that people start to feel like, oh, my dog's totally fine. And when people, right when they're saying, I always feel like such a buzzkill, because they'll say like, oh, he's doing so well, it's great. And I'm like, great, I'm so happy about that. Thank you for sharing this update. One thing I want to say though, is that right when you feel like, oh, okay, I can let my guard down, that's when sometimes people forget to notice like, oh, my dog did kind of stiffen, or my dog did kind of lift their lip a little, or their eyes got wide. Like, so sometimes I've had people have another incident right when they've made a lot of progress, because they're kind of thinking like, oh, okay, we're totally there. And with a dog that's been aggressive, there's always going to be some management, some, just prevention. I mean, that's what leashes are about, and gates and closed doors, and, saying, nope, you can't come in with that Halloween costume on. That will freak my dog out, that kind of thing.
I'm glad you said that, because I said it before on another show of ours, but I want you to tell me what I did wrong, which I know something went wrong. I was doing a show in New York City called Broadway Bark. They do it once a year on July, and a lady brought this dog over. I didn't know the history until later on, and it was a pit bull in a 6-foot leash. Later on, I found out she was a foster for ACC, and the dog was aggressive. So the dog came up to me. I put my hand out. He smelled my hand. She smelled my hand. She sat down. So I thought it was okay to pet her. So when I pet the dog, it went from 0 to 10, back down to 0. Because it bit me on my face. Okay. And I pulled back. Now I'm a retired detective. And that day I said, I'm not carrying my gun, because God forbid something happens, I don't want to shoot the dog. And that's exactly what happened. Mm-hmm. So, but I went for it, and I found out that I didn't have it. So I was going to protect myself. So I put my hands up, and I see the dog laying down on the floor like, pet me, pet me. Like nothing happened. I said, what is this? Now I'm aggressive because I got bitten, but I'm not going to do anything. He's a dog. He's a dog. What part did I do wrong there?
But I don't think of it necessarily in terms of blame. I mean, that situation was clearly just too much for that dog. One thing I will say, though, is that I don't recommend reaching your hand out to have dogs, like when you're greeting dogs. With non-aggressive dogs, that could be great. They can sniff you. But if it's an unknown dog and they are aggressive, that's a common situation that people get bitten when they're reaching their hand out. A lot of dogs are hand shy. They don't like seeing a hand come over their head or towards them. So I don't reach my hand out. I always let dogs come to me. And I make sure if I am petting a dog, I don't pet them reaching over the head. A lot of dogs don't like that. Maybe they like it on the chest. And I feel like that dog basically was trapped. It was on a leash. You're an unfamiliar person, and they didn't want to be pet. So I feel like
it was crowded. It
was crowded. Dogs can be so overwhelmed. I mean, I'd love to see video of it, because I can't know for sure from your description, but I would bet that dog was giving some signs of anxiety or discomfort or nervousness or stress. But sometimes, they can just get all, they look kind of wiggly, or they are very calm, and it makes it seem like they're very comfortable, but they're not. And there can be a lot of more subtle signs of dogs that are a little uncomfortable. And so my guess is that there were some of those that didn't go recognized.
I mean, the dog was actually sat down looking at me, and that's when I put my hand out.
Yeah.
And I let the dog smell me and everything.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
it's really upsetting.
But the thing is, when the dog was laying down, like, pet me now, like you could do it now, which I said I'm not going to. A little girl, like 6 years old, was walking by to pet the dog, and the dog got up and the hairs went up. It was like a different dog again. So the lady that had the dog was screaming like a knucklehead, which wasn't helping at all. So I took the leash away from the lady, and the dog was between my legs, like it looked like it was guarding me. So I took control of the dog and bleeding in the side, and the little girl that took her away, and then the dog, it belongs to the ACC, but they didn't see the ACC for like 6 months because we quarantined the dog. We didn't want the dog to get killed, and the dog got adopted out. But this dog is like, number one, she should have never brought the dog over, because the dog is aggressive, especially in a place like that. But this dog was like from 0 to 10. 0 to 10. It was like no warning in between.
Yeah, sometimes some dogs do like accelerate in their arousal levels really quickly. Sometimes the signs go unrecognized. I think just because a dog sits or even lies on their back doesn't mean they want to be pet. A lot of dogs lie on their back, like an appeasement gesture, like I don't mean you any harm, like leave me alone. I'm not challenging you. And then when people pet them. Like, didn't you see me? I'm not trying to do anything. It kind of alarms me that the dog got adopted out. I mean, that just because it has a bite history, I hope nothing happened again. But the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. And so, adopting out a dog that has bitten is risky.
What causes aggression in a calm dog? You hear stories about people who've had a wonderful dog for 2 years, 3 years, and all of a sudden that dog's behavior does a 180 and the dog becomes aggressive, and they're mystified as to how and why that happens, and how quickly can that be corrected.
Well, there are a lot of different reasons why a dog who's not shown aggression will show aggression. One of them is that most dogs first start to show aggression sometime between 18 months old and 3 years of age. So many times people have a dog for like a year and a half, and they don't see aggression, but then it's just naturally they develop that way. And it's the earlier they show aggression, the more alarming it is. The same way, and I realize I'm saying this to a detective, so maybe I'm like, my analogy is not quite right, but you can tell me. If you hear of like an 18-year-old kid that like holds up a convenience store, that's not good, but we're not like shocked by it. It happens. But if you hear of like a 7-year-old that does it, you're like, oh my goodness, like that's a big deal. It's the same with dogs. And if my analogy is wrong, you just let me know. So that's one thing, is that it's just a natural developmental progression for dogs who have a tendency to be aggression, that it will happen, in adolescence or early adulthood for the first time, usually. The other thing is that sometimes much older dogs, like if someone comes to me with a dog that's 7 or 8 years old or older, and they say, so out of character, like this dog, the nicest, sweetest thing. And like 3 weeks ago, it like suddenly lost its mind, and it's biting us, and like it used to love us, like it slept in our bed with us, and it, loved the neighbor kids, and now it's biting. The first thing I'm going to say is take your dog to a veterinarian, because I suspect your dog might be in pain. I don't know that, obviously, but I suspect that. And the first time I had a case like that, I was actually interning with someone who was teaching me about working with dogs. And this, like a kind of a Basset Hound Beagle, some kind of cross, came in, and it was 10 years old, and it had been just like the sweetest dog. And all of a sudden it was like, the family was describing it as vicious. And she said, I don't know what's going on with your dog, but I'm very convinced that it's pain. And they took the dog to the veterinarian, and it had an impacted tooth. And as soon as they got that they took the tooth out, and the dog, took a day or two to recover from that, it was totally back to normal. And what happens is sometimes, like I know of another dog that had, I'm not sure I know the medical term, but like a slip disc kind of thing, something in its spine. So it was getting really aggressive with the other dog in the house. And they'd played together for years. They'd lived together for years, and it was jumping on it. And it was biting. And it's like, well, just like when you have a sunburn or your back hurts, you don't want people leaping on you. And you're like, stop it, knock it off, in kind of a verbally aggressive way. So sudden aggression is usually just age related or pain related, in my experience.
Well, that is great. We are winding down towards the end of our.
I got one more.
Okay.
And the question is, can aggression of dog is because of human behavior? In other words, see a dog, it's so cute, it likes to bite, I like it, it's so beautiful, and it's growing the dog. Now the dog is getting bigger with the same behavior because I came out and said, it's okay, you could do that, it's okay. That's the part of talking about human behavior.
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
No, that was a question.
Yeah. Humans can, humans can certainly play a role in aggressive dogs. I don't think it's usually because they're saying like it's okay or like just accepting it. I think it's more like if they don't socialize them when they're young, so the dog finds the world to be this like freaky place, and then the dog's sort of in a panic all the time. Like they're like, they act almost like they just don't have any knowledge of social skills because they didn't learn them when they were little. That can be an impact that people can have. And of course, a lot of pandemic puppies didn't get all the social skills they needed because they just didn't get a chance to get out. So that can be an impact. And then if people are really, really, really mean to dogs, like abusive to dogs, many abusive dogs just, are so submissive and they're just like terrified and sink in and don't do anything. But some, you push them hard enough and the dog's suddenly like, oh yeah, I just remembered I got these big canines here. And sometimes dogs that have been abused will become aggressive, which, I can't really blame them for it. Honestly, it's like, that's their way to protect themselves from being treated badly.
Well, thank you, Dr. London. If somebody out there has a dog that they want to have re-educated and to behave better, they can reach you at your website, which is, I think Angel has it.
Yeah, I don't actually have a website. I mean, people can contact me through Instagram, which is Karen London Dog Behavior. And generally speaking, if people need help, I mean, I'm happy to help people if they reach out, but the best thing they can do is contact someone that's local to them, because even though we all learned during the early parts of the virus to do dog training and behavior over Zoom, I mean, I recommend that people contact people close to them. And you can look on the Animal Behavior Society webpage, and they've got a listing of certified applied animal behaviorists. And hopefully people can, it's alphabetical, so it's not by region, but you can look at everyone's address and hopefully find somebody near you.
They can get your book too. You have a series of books.
I do. Yeah, I have 5 books that I've written with Patricia McConnell, who was my mentor, also a behaviorist. And then I have, and we wrote one about multiple dogs, and one about house training, and one about dogs that are reactive on leash, and one about adopting adult dogs. And gosh, I'm missing one. Oh, one about play in dogs. And then, yeah, these are my 2 most recent books, Treat Everyone Like a Dog. And then Cows, Ants, Termites, and Me is a collection of newspaper columns I wrote for my local newspaper in our column called The London Zoo, which has nothing to do with the actual London Zoo. It's just my name.
Now, how many aggressive behaviors out there? Because a dog is aggressive in the ACC or whatever, or shelter. I mean, a kill shelter, they'll take them out because it's too aggressive. So they don't take the time for them. So I mean, you sound like more unique to me because you're so calm. I mean, are there a lot of aggressive behaviors out there?
Aggressive behaviors, or?
Yeah, I mean, trainers. I mean, a lot of. I mean, you're expert on aggressive dogs, right?
Right.
And I don't hear that. It's like a doctor's. I'm into brain surgery. I'm into heart surgery.
I think you're talking about specialists. I think Angel's asking if there's a specialized category of being a dog behaviorist. So is that a large profession, or is that a small profession with not that many people who do what you do?
Yeah, there aren't that many people who do what I do. There are a lot of dog trainers, who teach dogs to walk nicely on a leash and to come when they're called and to sit and to do tricks. I do that also. I see clients with that. There aren't that many people. Like, I'm in Arizona, and I think there are just 3 of us that are certified applied animal behaviorists in the state of Arizona. We used to have a 4th, but she moved to Ohio. So now Ohio has another one. But yeah, there aren't a lot, which is too bad. And I mean, for people who are studying in school right now and are interested, I mean, unfortunately, there's sort of endless amounts of work. There's always plenty of business, if you want to think of it that way. There's always plenty of work. And so, I mean, the profession needs more people who have lots of experience with animals, who can help people with aggressive dogs. So, I mean, I always, like, when young people want to get into the field, I'm always very encouraging, because we need more of them. I feel just, I mean, sometimes I'm booking out months and months in advance, and, and I mean, people are in crisis, and obviously I do fit emergencies in, but what I consider an emergency is probably like a higher bar than what people that are currently living with a dog that's got an issue. And I understand that, but I can only see who I can see. So we need more people in the field.
Now, the reason why it caught me to you, that I searched a lot of people to put in our show. And what caught my eye was something, that's what I said about aggressive, is something that you put out once regarding the lasers. Don't play with lasers. I used to tell people use lasers because it attracts the cat or attracts the dog, because the dog needs something to do something with you to bond. But it says don't play with lasers. Why?
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely your heart's in the right place. Dogs need it, and cats need attention and play, and we want to keep them active. And that's why people use lasers. But some dogs really become obsessive when they play with lasers, and they start to like trace shadows and like, kind of get freaky about light, and they really become sort of psychologically damaged. Others become very frustrated because a lot of dog playing, and cat play even more, it's like sort of it's like people going, I'm going to get you. It's not like we're really going to get you, but it's this sort of mimicry of predatory behavior. And so if dogs or cats are going after this laser. They're trying to catch something, and it's very frustrating to never catch it because it's not there. So that causes a lot of issues. It just, my experience is that dogs and cats, they might seem like they're enjoying it, but they don't benefit in the long run. But you're totally right that we need to give dogs more activity and enrichment and play with them. There's just better ways to play with them than with the lasers.
All right. And with that, we are at the end of the show. So Angel, you get the last word. And thank you so much, Karen, for being a very informative guest. People buy Karen's books because you will not only learn a lot about dog behavior, but about human behavior too.
Thank you so much. It was really great talking with both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. And just to let you know, Karen, that clicker,
Uh-huh.
it never worked on me when I was a child. I didn't listen. But so everybody, thank you for watching that show. Please subscribe. That's what basically say, and share, because there's a lot of education here, a lot of help for the animals. So, please spay and neuter your pets, and do you know where your pets are?